A Renegade Angel by Ennio and Lacri. Chapter 1. The Beginning of a New Life. At first, we see a strong light, and gradually, the silhouette of an angel lying on his back, in a 2-meter tall grass of yellow color as if illuminated from the stem to the tip. The angel stretches his wings and his whole body, in that grass that almost completely covered him, as if she wanted to make him disappear. The angel named Azrael, having big white wings, brown hair, medium to long, brown eyes, aged between 25 to 37 years old, a guy with high hopes for the future. The angel said, smiling while lying down, "Azrael, it's time to go to work." Azrael, "Okay, God, I'm ready to go back to work." Then the angel gets up and walks through the tall grass. After a few tens of meters, the grass starts to shrink, while the angel reaches the edge of a precipice. He was now on the edge of a mountain that led straight down, and at the foot of the mountain stretched a huge forest formed from trees with leaves colored in a blue/turquoise. A few minutes later, Azrael arrives in front of a house, as if it had been built from a living plant with walls green. Azrael rang the doorbell, and a few moments later answered a nice older lady who loved children. She is the mother of newborn souls, and she tells Azrael, "Mother of souls, I know, honey, you came for the girl. Please go to the yard behind the house." Azrael, "Of course. Thank you." Azrael crosses the house and goes out the back exit. It led to a place full of magic. In the middle of the yard, there is a gigantic seed placed on the ground from which had grown. On the left side of the seed, a huge flower that spread its brightly colored petals over the entire yard and the house, as if it were a protective wall in the form of a sphere, meant to protect the children playing in the yard. With some lively colors that spread like this, from the root caught in the old and brownish seed as if aged by time, the giant green stems were leaving, and as they stretched, the colors of the veins gradually became orange, penetrating the petals/leaves with a purple color. The petals being colored with an orange at the base, which became yellow towards the center, and then with a dark blue. The giant petals having some openings in them where a strong light penetrated, and at one of the openings a similar big tree crossed its path near. The house had grown in the midst of that seed. The seed, thus aged by time, began to have some large cracks in it that made it appear to be a gigantic wooden egg that protected the roots of the two plants inside it. The large cracks in the seed made it look like it was built from some corrugated planks joined together. Azrael saw the new child that was going to be sent to Earth. He went to her and asked her, "Azrael, are you ready, my child?" Azrael, "I know it's the first time, but you don't have to be afraid." Azrael, "Everything will be fine, and you won't feel anything." A few-years-old girl with brown and slightly wavy hair, a length that slightly exceeded the level of the shoulders. The little girl looked at him with wide eyes of wonder and said, "Carolina, yes, I am ready and impatient to meet my parents." The two left that place, thus heading towards the fountain of life, the place where souls are bathed to be sent to Earth. On their way, they passed by the ruins of an Aterzi fountain with a square shape and 4 marble pillars, 2 of which fell to the ground, one of them being broken into pieces and penetrating through the collapsed wall of the well. The fountain is located next to a very old and huge abandoned castle with dark gray walls and aged by the passage of time. The little girl, being amazed by the circumstances, then asked Azrael, "Carolina, wow, what's here?" Azrael, "Here, dear child, are the ruins of the old castle where we all lived, together with God." Azrael, "Everything changed at the moment of the rebellion of our brother Lucifer and other brothers who followed him." Carolina, "Wow, it's very big and beautiful." Azrael, "Here is the great battle that sent my fallen brothers to where they will remain forever." Azrael, "Since then, God, together with those who stayed with him, left this part of heaven." Azrael, "We and the people still come sometimes here. Many of those who are in heaven love this place." Azrael, "But God never came back here." Then the two continued on their way and reached the fountain of life. This was a fountain that had the shape of a swimming pool next to a rock, and at the bottom of the water there were some clouds, through which you could see the earth. Several angels gathered at the fountain, after which they slowly immersed the girl in the fountain of life, where she disappeared as if by magic. Azrael then goes down to earth to continue his mission, to defeat evil and stop the demons from influencing people to become more evil with each other and from ceasing to believe in God. Demons came to earth and tried to take control of this world, provoking people to become more evil with each other and putting ideas in people's heads like God does not exist, to make people believe that they can do whatever they want without consequences, so that demons can capture as many souls as possible. Azrael and the angels were fighting against them. When God called Azrael to his service to take care of Caroline, he did not agree at first because he believed that the work he was doing was important and he did not want to give up the fight to take care of a simple human. But in order not to upset God, he still accepted the task that had been given to him, not knowing that everything was part of God's plan to show him that people are also important and that a little later he would fall in love with Caroline. Chapter 2: A Divine Mission. A few years later, in a corner of the universe, Azrael lay down and looked carefully at Caroline. Although she was not aware of his presence, the angel watched over her every moment to protect her from any evil that could have befallen her. The girl had a wonderful soul, but her life was full of difficulties and troubles. Every day she felt alone and helpless, believing that all her problems were due to her guardian angel. After the death of her natural mother, Caroline had to separate from her younger brother and be adopted by a new family. Those who adopted her were a couple without children who decided to give her a home and a family. Caroline was grateful for this opportunity, but she could not forget that she had been separated from her brother, and she wanted to meet him again with all her heart. Her new family was wonderful. However, Caroline was also surprised by how much they tried to make her feel welcome and integrate into their new life. Over time, she began to consider her adoptive parents as her real family. However, her desire to meet her brother again never disappeared. Over the years, she tried to look for him in different ways, but without success. In the end, she decided to give up the search and focus on her new home and her adoptive family. One day, however, she received a phone call that would change her life forever. It was her brother, who was also looking for her. Their meeting was emotional, and Caroline was delighted to meet her younger brother again after so many years. Since then, they stayed in touch and spent a lot of time together. Finally, Caroline understood that family is not only about blood ties, but also about mutual love and care. Her new family was always there for her, while her brother was always in her heart. Stepping through the dark and dirty streets of Bucharest/Romania, Caroline fixed her gaze on the ring she had on her finger. It was the most precious thing she had. A gift from her mother before she died. He clearly remembered her words. Caroline, no matter how hard your life is, you must always trust God and your guardian angel. They will protect you and guide you on the right path. While advancing with a determined step, she realized that she no longer believed in those words. Her guardian angel, instead of protecting her, made her feel confined and confused. The angel could not understand why the girl thought this way about him. He truly loved her and was completely devoted to her. Although he could not intervene in her life in a visible way, he always sent her signs so that she could know that he feels both her joy and her pain. But the girl didn't know this and continued her life without acknowledging the presence of her angel. Caroline was in big trouble. She tried to face everyday life, but all the obstacles in her way seemed to become bigger and harder to overcome. She felt enveloped by a feeling of restlessness, and she wanted to get rid of this pressure that overwhelmed her. She was convinced that the culprit for all this was her guardian angel. Chapter 2: Denial of the Angel. One day, the girl learned about the possibility of firing her guardian angel. She thought that this might bring her more peace and happiness because she imagined that the burdens she felt were from the cause of the angel. Without knowing the truth, she made the decision to give up on him. Caroline is in her room, lying on her stomach with her hands under her chin, in her bed. She takes the phone that was placed on the bed next to her and calls her best friend. Ada, a girl with shoulder-length red hair, 25 to 35 years old, black eyes. Carolina. Hello, how are you, girl? Ada. Hey, I am good, I'm home. I was watching TV. Ada. What are you doing? You are okay? Carolina. I'm not really okay anymore. I miss my mother and my brother. Carolina. My job is not good at all, and I feel abandoned and alone. Carolina. I honestly don't know. Sometimes I have the impression that life is making fun of me. Carolina. Many times I tend to think that my guardian angel does not do his duty at all. Ada. Off. Sorry to hear that, speaking of the guardian angel. Ada. I found a book at the library some time ago and read something interesting on this topic. Carolina. Yes. What exactly have you read on this topic? Ada. In that book they said something that you can find out the name of your guardian angel. And, if you want, you can fire him if you know his name. Carolina. Are you serious? Do you really think this is for real? Ada. I don't know if it's for real, but you can try, After all, you have nothing to lose. Ada. If it works, you will be able to give it up, and maybe you will get another one, who knows? Ada. And, if it doesn't work, at least you know you tried. Carolina. That's true. But how can I find out his name? Ada. I read in the book that to find out his name, you have to ask him to tell you his name when you go to sleep. Ada. And at that moment when you are about to fall asleep, then you will hear his voice and his name. Carolina. Interesting, thank you very much. I'm really going to try and see what happens. That night before going to bed, Caroline asked her guardian angel to tell her his name. And at the moment she was about to fall asleep, she heard a warm voice whispering in her ear, the angel being constrained by the girl's request to tell her his name. Azrael. Azrael. The next day, Caroline decides to use the new information to try to give up her guardian angel. The angel was devastated by this news. He felt that his whole universe collapsed in an instant and he didn't know how to continue. But, despite his pain, he decided to rise to the sky and do something. One evening, when Caroline was returning from work, her guardian angel took flight to the sky to ask God to offer him a solution. I read in the book that to find out his name, you have to ask him to tell you his name when you go to bed to sleep. That night before going to bed, Caroline asked her guardian angel to tell her name. The moment Caroline decided to make a radical decision and gave up her guardian angel, in an instant, he lost his wings and fell to earth in a unknown place. As the angel falls to earth, he hears a resounding but warm and gentle voice that tells him, God. My son, I know what it is about, and I understand the pain and suffering. God. This is my solution, but you have to understand that true love means letting the person I love choose their own way. God. You cannot force anyone to love you or keep you in their live. God. But if you really want to be with her, you must give up your power and protection as a guardian angel and become a human. God. Only then will you be able to approach her and explain to her that you are not responsible for all the difficulties she has gone through. God. All this is part of my divine plan, and I see things as a whole, unlike humans. God. You already know all this, son. And that way you will be able to explain it to her too. While the angel was getting closer and closer to the earth, that voice began to be heard more slowly and almost stopped. Thus were the last words heard by the angel. God. I trust you, my son, and I love you. Chapter 3. In Search of Love. Thus arrived on earth the guardian angel in the form of an ordinary man. At that moment, Azrael did not know how to control his new human body, being only used to the freedom and agility that his wings offered. It was not easy for him to adapt to this new life and to the feeling of vulnerability he felt, but he did everything he could to find Caroline and explain the truth to her. It didn't take long to realize that in his new life he needed food because of his new human body, but also a shelter just like any other human. Thus, having nowhere to sleep and nothing to eat, He spent his first day on Earth on the streets asking people to offer him work or money for food. The next day, while he was sitting in the street with a cardboard in front of him that said, "Offer me work or money so I can eat something," a lady about 45 to 50 years old passed by him who saw the young man, having pity of him. She says, "Mrs. A, you live on the streets, is that right?" Azrael, "I am new in this life, and unfortunately, yes," he said, looking at the ground and thinking about something, time in which the lady continues, "Mrs. A, get up and come with me." Then Azrael's face lit up, having the impression that he heard the voice of Jesus. He looked up from the ground and saw for the first time the face of the lady who wanted to help him. "Mrs. A, come on, dear. I feel sorry for you to see you like this." "Mrs. A, so I will offer you what I can." Azrael, "Thank you very much." Azrael got up and started walking with that lady. "Mrs. A, I will give you a place to live." "Mrs. A, I hope I can trust you, and don't mock the help." Azrael, "God, I would never do that." "Mrs. A, the place I'm telling you about is the apartment of a neighbor of mine who left the country a few years ago." "Mrs. A, and she left her apartment in my care." "Mrs. A, you can live there until you get up on your feet." Azrael, "Thank you very much again." "Mrs. A, please take care of the apartment and everything in it." "Mrs. A, I'll stop by from time to time to make sure everything is okay in the apartment." "Mrs. A, and here's some money so you can get some food." The lady hands him some money, after which she leaves the apartment, leaving our angel, now a man, in that apartment. In the following days, Azrael continued his search to find Caroline, asking people on the streets if they knew her. But still it was very difficult for him to adapt to the new lifestyle, not understanding why some people didn't even take him seriously. However, he was not afraid, and had not lost hope. Azrael knew that he had to find Caroline and make her understand the truth. Thus, he began to move around the city, exploring the new world in which he was. During his journey, he met people who helped him understand how this world works, but also how to hide his true identity. Despite his efforts, the angel could not find Caroline in the following days since he descended to Earth in the form of a human. However, he was not discouraged and continued to look for her, trying to find any clue that would lead him to the girl. One morning, Azrael decided to go to a park, where Caroline used to go. There, he waited for her in a secluded place. Seated on the bench, and with his eyes directed towards the ground, the angel felt a strange vibration, as if he felt a divine presence. At that moment, he looked up to see Caroline a few meters away from him. The angel was speechless at that moment, and his heart began to beat strongly in his chest. Azrael plucked up the courage and approached her. Azrael, "Hi, Caroline, I'm so glad to meet you." Azrael, "I was hoping from the bottom of my heart to find you here. It was my last hope to find you." Azrael, "For a moment, I really thought that I will not be able to find you." Carolina, "Hello, sorry, but even though you seem to know, I'm not sure if I know who you are." Azrael, "Of course, forgive me." Azrael, "My name is Azrael, and I am your guardian angel, which you gave up a few days ago." Azrael, "The fact that you gave up on me made me lose my wings and become a normal person just like you." Azrael, "But it's okay, I know very well everything you went through and what you felt." Azrael, "But you must know that nothing from what is happening to you is or was my fault, but was part of God's plan." Caroline was stunned to hear this, but also felt a sense of guilt for the way she had treated him before. The two walked around the city, talking about the past and the future. Caroline showed him a part of the world that was new to him, and the angel was fascinated by everything he saw. As time passed, the two became closer and closer, and Caroline began to feel more confident and more secure around him. Azrael, for his part, realized that he cannot live without her and is ready to do anything to protect her. Chapter 4. Disclosure. One day while they were walking around town, Azrael began to explain to Caroline how important she is and how God sees things. Thus Hai began to tell the girl about an incident in her life since she was little, and she had gone with her natural mother to the park. Caroline was playing in the park with the enthusiasm of a 5-year-old, running and laughing. Her natural mother, Julia, sat down on a nearby bench and looked lovingly at her.
Child.
While Caroline was playing, Julia noticed a couple sitting on a nearby bench, talking with a concerned air. She noticed that they were looking at Caroline with admiration and decided to talk to him. Julia. Excuse me, but I noticed that you admire children. Julia. I am the mother of this little girl. She is beautiful and I am proud of her every day. The man. Of course, you have a very beautiful and cheerful little girl. Woman. Sure is really a beautiful girl. Woman. We don't have children. Woman. Although we love children, we feel that we are not yet decided whether we want to have children or not. The two, who were still undecided whether they wanted children or not, looked in amazement at Caroline, who was playing and laughing but happy. Julia shared with them her story about how wonderful the experience of being a parent is and how she can't imagine life without her wonderful
Child.
Julia. I know that you may be afraid of the responsibilities you will have if you have children. Julia. But with the responsibilities of a parent comes the blessing. Julia. Being a parent does not only mean responsibility and care. Julia. It also means to love, to feel the need to protect that little human which is part of you and your
blood.
Julia. It is a unique feeling to know that someone needs you constantly, needs your love and protection. Julia. And with the passage of time, you see how that human child begins to grow more and more. Julia. And become an adolescent, and then a human in all its nature. Julia. Your world changes completely the moment you hold your child in your arms for the first time. That lump with hands and feet, and a fragile soul. With these words, the couple was convinced, and decided to try to have a child. After 5 years, 2 beautiful children were born, a boy and a girl. The girl became Carolina's best friend, and the two grew up together and became inseparable. Caroline did not know that day how important the meeting between her mother and that couple would be and how much it would influence and change her life in the future. But at that moment, she was just enjoying her game, not suspecting what was to come. Then the angel explained to Caroline, Azrael, that was the moment when God used you in his service. Azrael, the couple your mother sat next to, and who didn't know if they wanted to have children or not. Azrael, they are your best friends.
Parents.
Azrael, then God saw a chance to give the couple the motivation they needed to have a child. Azrael, but also to offer you a good friend who will be by your side in difficult moments. Azrael also explains the fact that Azrael, at the death of your mother, God saw an opportunity to work through and for people. Azrael, thus he offered you a new family made up of a couple who wanted children but couldn't have them. Azrael, and by the fact that he offered a child to that couple and you a loving family. Azrael, God not only saved your life but also the couple's relationship and at the same time the life of your adoptive father. Azrael, because if your adoptive parents hadn't had a baby soon, they would have split up. Azrael, and your adoptive father could not have endured the pain of separation and would have committed suicide. Carolina. For real?
Carolina.
God, that incredible, I didn't know that. Azrael. So with this act, God fulfilled his will to keep the couple together for 2 whole lives. Then Caroline understood her importance in this world, but also the way the angel saw her and her feelings towards him started to grow stronger. Azrael. My dear Caroline, I would like to explain to you, Azrael, how God sees things and give you a perspective from my point of view. Azrael, God is the creator of all things, including us, angels. Azrael, he has a well-defined plan for each of us, and this plan is always bigger than we can understand. Azrael, when I was rising to heaven, God already knew what would happen. Azrael, he knew that you would choose to give up on me and that I am in love with you. Azrael, also, he knew that by my falling from the position of an angel, I would be able to fulfill your desire to give up on me. Azrael. And let me offer you my help and the support you need.
Carolina. Wait, what?
You are in love with me. Azrael. Yes, my dear. I honestly don't know how or when this happened. Azrael. But my love for you started to grow more and more when I was still your guardian angel. Azrael. So that I reached the point where I wanted to become a human. Azrael. So that I could be with you, but also help you overcome the difficulties of life and explain to you that it is not my fault. Azrael. And that everything is part of God's plan. Azrael. Therefore, my falling away was not an act of rebellion or disobedience to God. Azrael. But it was a necessary action to fulfill God's plan for the two of us. Azrael. He knew that in this way I will be able to be with you, and you will lose me as an angel, but you will gain me as a boyfriend. Azrael. That way I will be able to live and offer my support, my love, and the help you need, even in my absence, as an angel. Azrael. You must understand that God has a plan for us and that this plan is always bigger and wiser than what we can understand at the moment. Azrael. I promise you that I will always be by your side, even if that means being human. Azrael. God will guide my step and give me the strength and wisdom I need to support you and be with you at all times. Azrael. My love for you will never diminish, and I will always be ready to help and support you in any way possible. Finally, the two realized that their destiny was to be together and that no force in the world could separate them, and the angel promised her that he will do everything he can to always be by her side and to protect her, regardless of the obstacles that will be put in their way. Together, they began to explore the world and discover everything that was unknown to them, and Caroline began to feel that her life was no longer heavy. She found her place next to her angel. Azrael showed her the beauty in the small and simple things that surrounded her, and Caroline showed him how important love and care for others is. Chapter 5. The Decisions of a Renegade Angel. One day, the angel proposed to Caroline to go for a walk in the park. She accepted enthusiastically, excited about the idea of spending time with him. During the walk, the angel heard a desperate cry for help and ran towards its source. Caroline followed him closely, wondering what was happening. In a corner of the park, they found an elderly woman who had fallen and seriously injured herself. The angel approached her with the intention of picking her up in his arms to fly with her to the hospital, but then he remembered that his wings were no longer there. Azrael was worried about losing his wings and how it would affect him in the future. But Caroline encouraged him and made him understand that he did not need his wings in order to help people. Although the angel lost his wings and could no longer fly, he found a new way to fulfill his mission of protecting and helping those around him. And he began to give first aid to the women. Caroline was beside her, encouraging her and trying to ease her pain. When the woman was taken to the hospital, Azrael and Caroline left together, still moved by the incident in the park. That evening, the angel told Caroline about his life in heaven and about the battle between angels and demons that was taking place on earth. She felt, once again, that her whole world was changing, that everything was becoming brighter and more beautiful in his presence. They spent a lot of time together, trying to get to know each other better, and to discover everything that made them happy. Over time, the angel and Caroline became inseparable and built a beautiful life together. They went through many trials and obstacles, but they remained united and supported each other in any difficult moment. And the angel understood that love does not only mean to protect, but to be there for the other, to share your joys and sorrows, to live and support each other in all circumstances. Azrael and Caroline were walking around the park and talking. Azrael. My dear, what people don't know is that if an angel decides to give up his divinity and become human, Azrael, he will completely lose all the rights he once had. Azrael. When an angel becomes human, he becomes human like any other, and just like any other human, he will have to earn his right to go to heaven. Carolina. So if you die now, You're not sure if you'll go to heaven or not. Azrael. No, my dear. This is the rule and the sacrifice an angel must make when he makes the decision to renounce divinity. Azrael. He must be willing to give up this right and fight to win it just like any ordinary human. As he spoke, Azrael felt his heart tighten because Hai still felt vulnerable without his wings, but Hai wanted to be honest with Caroline and be together with her. Azrael. Another thing I wanted to explain to you, my love. Azrael. It is the fact that there is a connection between this world and the world beyond. Azrael. A connection that many people don't know about. Carolina. What connection are you referring to, my dear? Azrael. There is a way that people can communicate with those in heaven. Azrael. People can communicate with the dead through dreams. Azrael. Only those who are in the afterlife must follow some strict rules. Azrael. They must not reveal certain things about that world. And they will also pay a price for every moment spent in someone's dream. Carolina. What do you mean they will pay a price? I knew there was no money there. Azrael. It's true, my dear. I didn't mean such a price. It is about some rather heavy tasks that they will have to fulfill. Azrael. And depending on the difficulty of the tasks performed, God will decide how much time they will spend in the dream of the loved.
1.
Carolina. Interesting, I didn't know that. After their discussion, Caroline understood the truth. She felt the warmth of love, and thus, their bond grew stronger. That day, Azrael and Caroline spent time together, exploring the park and making plans for their future. Carolina. You know, sometimes I really wish I could go as far away from here as possible, somewhere where there would be peace. Carolina. Where I can admire nature and the landscapes it can offer. Carolina. I feel fed up with so much noise in the city and congestion. Azrael. My dear, maybe you don't know this, but you can get rid of the noise at any time and without going anywhere. Azrael. You can find peace and tranquility wherever you are and at any moment in life. Azrael. You just have to know how to do it, and if you want, I can't teach you. Carolina. Sorry, but I don't understand how. You say I can get rid of the noise. Please explain. Carolina. Please teach me how to do that. Azrael. You see, my dear, people can focus their attention on the things that cause the noise. Azrael. For example, the cars, or the people around, or the barking dogs, and many others. Azrael. But what many people don't realize is that they can also focus their attention on things that don't make noise. Carolina. Interesting, what do you mean? Azrael. Try to focus on the words of a building or the wall of a building. Or on the words spoken by the road. Caroline gave Azrael a strange look, thinking he was crazy. Then she said with surprised face, Carolina, are you kidding? Carolina. You know that buildings can't talk, and neither can a wall or a road. Azrael. Exactly. Carolina. Sorry, but I don't understand what you mean by that. Azrael. My dear, you're right. None of these objects can talk, but that's the point, they don't make any noise. Azrael. They are silent or mute if you want, and you can focus on their words when you feel that there is too much noise around you. Azrael. You can try this anytime, anywhere. The more often you practice, the easier it will be for you. Azrael. To find the peace you need wherever you are and no matter how much noise there is around you. Azrael. Also, if you really want to admire nature, we can travel together and visit the world. Azrael. There are many wonderful places in this world, places untouched by people. Azrael. Places that have preserved their natural beauty given by God. Carolina. Of course, I would like to do that. The two spent the whole day together, telling each other about their lives and dreams of a future full of love and adventure. Caroline was amazed by the beauty of the world from Azrael's perspective and by his wisdom and knowledge of the universe. As the day passed and the evening came, Azrael and Caroline decided to separate for the night, but promised to meet again soon. Azrael spent the night reflecting on the moments of that day and realizing that despite the loss of his wings, he had gained the most precious thing, true love. The next day, Azrael met Caroline again, and they spent another day together. Azrael. My love, Caroline. Azrael. I would like to make one more disclosure. Carolina. Of course, my beloved angel. I will listen to you. Azrael. Although I adore your presence, and I love you more than I could have ever imagined that I could love a human. Azrael. There are times when I feel vulnerable without my wings and the freedom they offered me. Azrael. I also miss the feeling of love that I felt from God. Azrael. But also the feeling offered by the fact that I had an important mission. Carolina. Oh my dear, I understand that it must be very difficult for you. Azrael. My dear, I love you enormously and that will never change. But what I didn't tell you, and you probably don't know. Azrael. It's the fact that even though you took my wings, giving up on me as an angel. Azrael. You can as well give me back my wings and the position of guardian angel. Azrael. And until you decide whether you will do this or not, I feel caught between two worlds. Azrael. One that is very familiar to me, and one that I am still discovering. Azrael. But don't worry, we have enough time to think, but also to enjoy what we have together. Azrael and Caroline spent a lot of time together, being happy and in love with each other. However, there was a major problem that concerned both of them. Azrael began to miss his position as an angel more and more, and he missed all that this affair. But he knew that if he returned, he would no longer be able to be with the girl he loved. As they discussed this matter, Caroline realized that there was no way she could become an angel, but Azrael could. She began to feel a pain in her soul because she did not want to lose Azrael, but she knew that he would be happy if she could get his job back as an guardian angel. Azrael was worried too, because he wanted to be with Caroline, but he also wanted to be an angel. She didn't know what decision to make, and he felt stuck between two worlds. Thus the fate of the two is in the hands of Caroline, who did not know what decision to make regarding her guardian angel, to restore his position as an angel by losing such a loved one and gain protection, or to keep him with her as a loved one, which could have made her feel selfish and guilty.